Welcome to Real Estate Real World, where we talk to the movers, shakers, and leaders that are getting it done right now in the real estate industry and beyond. Your host, Marguerite Crispello, started this podcast simply dedicated to call people about what's really happening in this crazy roller coaster ride of real estate. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and stay up to date on the newest stuff by adding yourself to the list at www.realestaterealworld.com. Now your host, Marguerite Crispello.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Marguerite Crispello, and welcome to another edition of A Real Estate Real World, where we get to talk to all the cool people. I do have a little bit of laryngitis here, so you'll have to forgive that sexy voice. Maybe it gets some extra downloads or something today. I don't know. But I'm very excited to have one of my very good friends join us today. I have known Hank for a few years now, and what I love most about him is his kind of no filter, kick-ass, tell it like it is personality, which fits mine very well. So we hit it off pretty well. A little bit about Hank. If you don't know him already, he developed the 36 to Life movement for real estate agents who are stuck in a rut with their business and need a boost, more specifically a kick-ass coach. As a former real estate agent and longtime real estate coach, he knows the struggle and hustle it takes to make it in the industry. He designed 36 to Life program to get you exactly where you want to be with your business and your life, not just a program that will lead you down a path of success. It's a mindset overhaul that will challenge you to reshape your practices. So welcome, Hank. We're happy to have you here.
That sounds fantastic. Did ChatGPT write that? That was awesome.
No, I wish they did. I don't know. Maybe they did because it's on your website.
Oh, there you go.
Somebody wrote it for you, apparently.
You know, it's interesting. Let's start there. By the way, thanks for having me. I just absolutely adore you and your husband. And as we were getting this set up, you guys asked for a bunch of stuff, and rightfully so. And what I realized was, if I stick in my 20% and do my 20%, the 80% oftentimes is the busy work. So I made a commitment many years ago just not to do the 80% and see what happened to my life. And Marguerite, what do you think happened to the amount of sex that I have? I mean, success that I have.
I don't know. Maybe I'll answer the first question. I'm hoping that went up for you. But the second part, I'm guessing that went up too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of times what we do is in real estate, we get started and we're working really hard, and then we start experiencing some success. And then what happens is we identify the 20% that gets 80% of the results, but then we're still just as busy because we replace a lot of the stuff that we were doing hard work wise with significance, not necessarily activities. So one of the things that I ask everybody around me to do right now is, have you identified your 20%? And if you have, look how much of the 80% you can get away with not doing, because oftentimes we're mistaking movement for achievement. Would you agree or disagree with that diagnosis?
You know what? I would agree 100%, because I think also right now we have a changing market. This is being recorded here in April 2023. And our market is changing, right? We don't have much inventory. Rates have gone up. We have an overabundance of real estate agents in the industry. And we have an entire generation of consumers and real estate agents that have only seen a skyrocketing market and low interest rates.
Yep.
And so right now, everybody's like standing around going, what the heck do? We don't know what to do with ourselves. And so I don't think that this could come at a better time, that if you really hunker down and focus on that stuff that is getting you the best results, instead of being out there caught up in all of the minutia, I guess you could say, huh?
Right. So let's go back to when I started in real estate. So see if you can figure it out. 2006, I'm in Michigan. I decided to get my real estate license. How do you think that was? The joke was, last one out of Michigan, turn the lights off. Yet here was my truth. I didn't know what I didn't know, so I just went and worked. I mean, I literally worked from sun up to sundown. And then when sundown came, I called that red light time. That's when I did all my paperwork. And I would work until I couldn't do it anymore. And then I'd go to bed and get up and rinse and repeat. And I did awesome. And I used to get turned into the board because, of course, his signs are too big and that's why he's winning. No,
Right.
it was because I didn't know any better. And here's what I did. I went to work. And many of us have gotten an overappraisal on how good we are because the market's made us. And right now, what we need to do is we need to do a gut check and we need to get back to work. And we need to make sure that our math works. So if you're watching this or listening to it, I just held up my forearm, and on my forearm, it says math versus drama.
Love it.
And most people, what they're doing is they're stuck in the drama. And I won't even talk about the drama until we look at someone's math. So for example, Marguerite, what do you think the chances are I could tell you what we did, what I've done on since 2016, every April 4th, every hour on the hour? Would you
I'm sorry,
take that?
can you repeat that?
So,
It cut out.
I'll bet you any amount of money that you want that I can tell you what I've done since 2016 on April 4th, every hour on the hour.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't take that bet. You'd win.
I'd win. And here's why. If it's not on your schedule, it doesn't exist. So let me see what your schedule looks like. And most of us, what we're doing is we're doing what's tension relieving instead of what's goal achieving. So here's the challenge that I'm going to give to all of you right now. You know how to create a schedule that can get you to the results that you want to get to. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is create that schedule and then make the pain of not following it greater than the pain of following it. So for example, 3 hours of lead generation every single day. Some people are like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine doing that. 3 hours of lead generation every single day, 3 times 15, 15 times 50. The reality is if you lead generated that much, you would be able to hit every single goal that you would desire.
Absolutely. Right.
So do you know our friend Glenn Sanford?
Oh yes, I do. Love him to pieces.
Glenn
Changed
reached
my
out
life.
to me a few years back and he goes, Hank, do you have time at 3:00? Here's what I did. I looked at my schedule and I had a free call, a free discovery call. What do you think I did? I took the call with Glenn or I took the free discovery call?
You probably took the call with Glenn.
I did not. Here's what I asked Glenn. Glenn, is it urgent and important, or could we do 4 or 5? He goes, no, Hank. It's not urgent at all, but 4:00 works out great. See, what happens is a lot of times what happens is we get an invite like that and we choose significance over what's going to go and get us sales. So here's what I know to be true. If I follow my schedule, I am 100% more likely to get results than if every time something that hits us from a significant standpoint or an emergency standpoint, every time I get off my schedule, I lessen the chances of me reaching my goal.
You know, that's incredibly valuable because I think that's why the industry as a whole operates like a bouncy ball, right? Like,
Yep.
I mean, they're literally bouncing. And the truth is, most agents got into real estate because they didn't want to work. They didn't want a job, right? They thought, oh, I can work when I want. I can have any schedule I want. I can, hang out and go see properties. And then they realize if you don't have a schedule, like you said, then you don't have a life. You really genuinely don't. How many orphans are there out there of real estate agents, kids who don't even get to see or spend time with their parents because their parents are dropping whatever's most important at the moment in lieu of a relationship with their kids? Would you not agree?
100%. And it goes back to because we're preached to more and we don't have any sort of system or idea of when our next paycheck is. So we're right in April, and what's coming up April 15th?
Taxes.
Now, I remember for many years, this time of year, I would get anxious. I would be like on edge. I mean, the first quarter for business owners oftentimes is brutal, right? So one of the things that I think real estate agents need to do is grow up, know your numbers, know your math. Because what I know is if you don't have systems in place, what happens is you get to a spot where you got to out earn stupid. And so do you remember Tony DeCello? You were back at the old company, right?
No, I don't.
Oh, you weren't?
No.
So Tony was a top coach, top mentor. And he goes, Hank, if somebody's behind on their taxes, they're not taking 50% of their income and putting it towards the taxes. What they're doing is they're digging their hole deeper. So here's what I'm going to encourage you to do as real estate agents right now. Take inventory. Your plane just crashed on an island and we need to look at food, shelter, and water. Once we realize, okay, where are we vulnerable from a food, shelter, and water standpoint? Then what we need to do is once we have that secured, we have to look for conveniences. Notice what we're talking about right here. we've got to know our numbers so that when we know enough is enough, and then we can raise our standards so that we can get the freedom, flexibility, and wealth that we got into real estate in the first place. The challenge is people choose freedom and flexibility and never get the wealth. And we need to do all three. So I'm all over the board right now. I'm wondering if I took my Ritalin medicine. Yet here's my point. You're going to have to work harder in 2023 to probably make the same amount of money or less money. Yet here's why I'm excited. Skill set matters again.
Absolutely.
This is where we get market share. This is where the strong will end up creating a future, 5 to 10 years from now, where it's going to be massive abundance. But when the storm's coming, you got to make sure you survive the storm and make sure that you put yourself in a position where you're not going to sink. And sometimes what you have to do is you have to take some drastic actions. I saw this coming about 6 months ago. We sold all my toys. We made some adjustment budget-wise so that we could prepare for the storm. Now, Marguerite, there's a good chance that we boarded up our windows and we didn't need to.
Right.
How good is it if we board up our windows and we didn't need to because the storm never came and we're sitting in a much better spot? Some of us haven't allowed our expenses to get way too high. I think now is the perfect time to look at that. Go ahead.
It's funny because in the real estate industry, this was my 30th year in real estate, so I've been at it for a while. And I know. And the interesting thing is that agents always overestimate what they make and underestimate what they pay, right? And expenses. Yep. And I learned those hard lessons myself back in, the 2000s, because I remember in 2006, we had a toy hauler and we had dirt bikes and we had we just built a guest house and we had everything, vacations, the whole bit. Right. And then I remember it was December 2005 for us in our market. And all of a sudden the winds started to shift. Obviously I had no idea what was coming, but right. The wind shifted. And all I remember is thinking, okay, something's not right. We need to hunker down. We need to figure it out. We need to get some stuff sold, get our plate cleared, and I need to figure out a different direction. And I started doing BPOs. And I remember at the time people were like, I'm not doing BPOs for $50. And I'm like, girl, that's milk money for my kids. I'll do whatever I have to do. Right. And I jumped into that world. And I loved how you said you worked your way through it. And, I personally taking this quote as mine, that it says you get paid in direct proportion to your ability to figure shit out.
Say that again. Say it for the people in the back.
You get paid in direct proportion to your ability to figure shit out. And I even just had shirts made. They're on Etsy. You can follow me on Etsy now. So I came up with that because here's the truth is that people can either sit around and whine and complain, or they can go figure it out. Find a way. And you'll only do that if you are many times rock bottom or desperate, or you get smart in your old age, like hopefully I've done. Is you got to start looking for ways to do things differently. The whole world said we had to have offices until COVID happened. Right. And then all of a sudden we didn't have to work in the office anymore. Right. We started figuring different things out. So I just think it's so valuable for agents to understand, number one, what you said, your schedule is, I can't live without my schedule. If it's not on my schedule, it doesn't happen. And those things have to take precedence. You even have to schedule your family time. Do you not agree?
I schedule having sex. You know why? We have 5 kids in our house. And the reality is 5 kids in our house, it doesn't happen. So, I have the saying, one of my mentors taught me was, if it's not in your schedule, it doesn't exist. And if something's not happening that's important to you, you might even have to get as basic as scheduling sex.
Yeah. We used to call it balancing the checkbook, but there you go.
Is that code? But that's where I also think that people need to have real conversations. And it's so interesting how people get weird about talking about sex or money. And these are all topics that I think we need to talk more about so that we can normalize, hey, you know what? Here's what's going on in my life. What's going on in your life? Because I think we've lost a little bit of that community where, let's face it, social media puts the highlight reels out. I had someone reach out to me and they're like, Hank, are you okay? I saw you sharing stuff. I go, did you read the whole post? By the way, can we swear on here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We already did. Okay.
Just want to make sure. And I was like, did you read the whole post? No, it was me being vulnerable, showing, hey, if you're not in your winning season right now and you're a little concerned, guess what? Even though I'm in a winning season, I'm still concerned and I'm cutting things back so that I can make sure that I'm preparing for what's coming. And if I over prepare, that's okay. So here, and I'm listening as a third party on here. Okay, Marguerite, we get that. Now what? And can we move into now what?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a contact game. So you'll notice on my hat, I have 50-25-1, and underneath my watch, I have it tattooed there. So here's my hallucination. If I tattoo a business principle on my body, you'll give me the benefit of the doubt that it works, because I wouldn't permanently imprint myself with something. Okay, I have that tramp stamp that I had. No, I digress. If you've listened to this far and you like that sort of humor, you're not my people. Now, think about what I just did there, Marguerite. People just judge me. They're like, oh my gosh, that was funny. Or I'm going to tune out because he said tramp stamp.
Right.
See, that's the 50. My goal is to get 50 people a day to say, I love Hank. He's my people. Or he's like, I'm okay either way, because I don't want people to be neutral. If you get 50 people a day not to be neutral with you, here's what happens. That's 18,000 over the course of the year. Now, we know this. The most profitable real estate model is 36 deals, because you don't need leverage. You don't need an assistant. You don't need other people to screw it up, where you leverage your way right out of a relationship. 24 listings, 12 of which is buyers, is a part-time job making a full-time income. Now, when we look at that, if you have 18,000 connections over the course of the year, do you think that there's 36 deals in those 18,000 connections?
Absolutely.
Now, here's what happens. When you have 50 people that judge you, they get off neutral. They either love you or hate you. You're going to end up having a handshake with 20 people. And remember when we used to shake hands pre-COVID?
Yeah.
It's like when we used to have sex without condoms before AIDS. You know? You didn't know this was going to be my comedy routine, did you?
Oh my goodness. I think I still have that. I think I still have that blackmail video somewhere.
Oh, geez. We digressed. So when you get to the 20, there's an energy exchange when you shake someone's hand. And that's what we're looking for, is have 20 energy exchanges with people a day. And what we say that is a handshake. The goal is to have 5 real conversations. Now, you and I, the reason we're friends is not because of the time on task that we have together, but the time on task that we have together in our greater network. So you hear people speak of Hank. You hear friends that I run with, and you get that web effect. So it seems as if we have more time on task together, because we at least remembered each other. We had a real conversation where you and I, we both had kids that have gone through some stuff.
Right.
I was able to break some bread with your spouse. We went and had a fun activity together. So the reality is, I still remember in New Orleans, when we went to that little dive bar. I'll forever remember that. That's the one. Yeah. If you can have an interaction like Marguerite and I had that one night in that little dive bar.
It was a dive bar. Forever. That's about the diviest bar I've been in.
It was so fun. Now, let's think about this. Marguerite's a giver, so if there's ever an opportunity for her to help out Hank, she's going to do it, because here's why. It feels good to help people. Now, here's the other math. If you have one powerful conversation a day with another human being, and it's a giver, that one person, Marguerite, how many people do you know and have influence over?
Probably a lot.
Hundreds. So it's safe to say it's 100. So if all 365 people have influence over 100 people, and they know how they can help you, is there 36 deals in that one arm's length?
Absolutely.
Now, here's the key, and I want to make this one last point. You got to decide if you're looking for leads or if you're looking for referrals. I've chosen to look for referrals, so here's what I do. Help my relationships get what they want. Figure out what their problems are, because we're up. Meaning, if you can have real conversations, figure out how they're fucked up, and then figure out how you can help them. Guess what? If you help them with whatever's going on in life, they know somebody who's going to buy and sell, and they're going to give you a headlock referral. And I'd much rather have a referral than a lead. And when you come in and you get that referral, now when Marguerite refers me, that person's basing the relationship based on, say Marguerite's known him for 5 years. They're going to walk in, if Marguerite gives me a headlock referral, as if Hank's the cat's meow. There's no selling, the transaction's easier, and life is much easier.
You know, I hope that people hear this, because I think as an industry too, we complain a lot. right? And
Garbage
we
magnets.
complain. Yeah, we complain a lot about situations. And I'm going to give a quick story here because I think it fits in. So I had this great client who I her house when she got married, then she got divorced, sold that house. She got married again, sold him a house. I mean, literally, she got married 3 times. I sold the houses all 3 times. So then it's a couple of years later, and all of a sudden I get her mail back because I mail to my database every month. So I get her mail back, and I called her. I was like, Jerry, I saw that you recently sold your home, and I just want to see if I offended you, if I did anything. I didn't want to upset you at all. You've been a client of mine for a long time. She goes, oh no, Marguerite. This new boyfriend, his sister got her real estate license. We had to use her. It was a nightmare deal. I'll never cheat on you again. Fast forward, she sells another house through me and now moves out of state. This time she's using a friend of hers out there. This time she decided that she ended up on Zillow because the agent did not educate her about how Zillow worked. And she got on Zillow, and this guy was a hot trotter. I mean, he hustled. He got out there, showed her properties, got her moving, everything. Her friend was so upset, like cussed and screamed and yelled at her. And I said, you've lost your mind, because Jerry has been a longtime client because I called her and I was kind. And I just said, hey, did I do something wrong?
You took responsibility.
If that agent had done the right thing, he would have had 2 more transactions from it. So I'm just here, like you said, Hank, you got to give. And many times you don't get anything back. But the more that you give, you get it back. And you don't always get it back from the person you gave it to. Does that make sense?
So there's a great book called Give and Take, and it changed my world because sometimes when you're a giver and you run into some takers, it can suck the life out of you. And you're like, should I really be doing this? When I read that book, Give and Take, what it did was it gave me some standards and principles around when I give and when I choose not to give, because we want to come from abundance, but we don't want to be stupid. And if you give to givers, you'll never be able to outgive a giver.
Absolutely. And I think that sometimes we get caught up in, if I give something to you, I have an expectation that you have to give something back to me. And you have to take that expectation out of there, first of all, because
now here's where I can add an asterisk.
Okay.
Marguerite, I don't give to you expecting something back. Now, if you find yourself in a position where it could benefit my wife and I, and you do something different morally and ethically than what I would do in the same situation, that doesn't mean that we need to continue forward in a relationship. True. So would you like an example?
Yes.
I had an agent, and both of us are with EXP, but it's not about EXP. I own a coaching company, and I was coaching this agent, and in Houston, they had a bunch of floods. When the floods came, it ruined her real estate business. I opened up my home to her and said, hey, let's get your coaching business off the ground. Come move in with me. Now, even more than that, I coached her for another 4 months for free to help her get back on her feet. Fast forward, she decides to come to EXP and makes a business decision to join through someone else.
Wow.
Now, Marguerite, I'm 54th in the company out of 87,000 people. I'm pretty good at what I do. Business decision. I said, hey, no problem, because I believe that people should be able to do what's best for them. And I was encouraged when I said, hey, go for it. Now, once that choice was done, they were dead to me. And here's why. Yeah. Who am I to say what's best for your company? However, in that same situation, morally and ethically, I couldn't have dreamed to do what this person did. So I wished them well. I helped them move on. And then after that, what I did was I cut the power, because here's why, Marguerite. I don't know if you're like me. Energy is a big deal to me. I have this. So once you don't have an income problem, you got to solve your cash flow problem. Once you don't have a cash flow problem, then we get to referee our life: relationships, energy, finances. You take care of your relationships. You make sure they give you energy, and you don't have to worry about the finances. If you take care of your relationships and then they steal your energy, the finances have to make sense. And if you're missing 2 of them, what is the relationship?
What is it? I love that. And I love you to pieces. I think that what happens many times too is people don't cut that cord fast enough, right? Like you keep wanting hope. And I've had this situation happen recently with, I don't want to make it into personal, but this person who has just taken. And I still, because of who I am, want to help them, right? Like I keep thinking that every time I start to think, maybe I'll do this and help them, that same person comes in and slaps me again. And I'm like, what the heck? So it's to the point where you have to say, okay, no, like you have to draw that line and not be there. It's hard to do. Would you not agree?
I disagree. And here's why. We probably agree more than we disagree. Yet there's three things to do when a relationship can get there. When I feel I've been wronged, and in the book Shadow Effect speaks to this, that was referred to one of my old coaches, John Chaplack. And when we got to understand our shadows, when someone hurts me, I want to hurt them back. Meaning when I feel wronged or when I feel cheated, I know that when I see them, my blood starts to boil and I wish I was a better person. So I have to cut the power or cut any ties with them because I know, subconsciously I can be a motherfucker.
Yeah.
So if I've been wronged, I have to cut the power. Here's the next step. Turn the light off. Marguerite, you want to know how to get your kids to turn the lights off when they walk out of the room? Have them have kids. And what I mean by that is, Marguerite, we might not have talked for 3 months because when we were not in the same room, we turned the light switch off so that there was no energy going back and forth. I've been sitting here going, oh gosh, is Marguerite mad at me? I haven't talked to her in 2 months. No, there's no energy going there. Yet when we walked back on this call, guess what? We were right back where we were. We turned the light switch on and now we're exchanging energy. And then the last one is this. And this happened to a lot of our middle school and high school friends. It was like the sunset. Slowly, then suddenly, there was no more light there. There was no more energy. So every single relationship is going to have its seasons. And I want you to decide, hey, is it going to be like the sunset? Is it going to be like the light switch? Or is it going to be where you need to cut the power? And make the decision on what you're going to do with that relationship. Because the majority of your relationships that you have right now, Marguerite, 20 years from now, how many of them will you still have on a monthly or weekly basis?
Yeah.
Very few.
I love that light switch analogy because one of my favorite books of all time is The 4 Agreements, right? And one of those agreements is don't take it personal. And it's easy to go into that space that you said, wow, I haven't heard from Frank. Is he mad at me? And it's easy to go. And I learned a long time ago not to go to that place. But what I've learned too, more importantly, I think, is that I've learned to have the friends around me that are the same. So learning to have people like you who are, I know if I don't talk to you for 3 months, there's not issues. If there was an issue, you're my favorite kind of person because I know Dan might have a call in like 10 seconds and we'd hash it out and we'd be done.
Well, here's what would happen. Here's what my therapy gave me. Here's how I'm feeling, Marguerite. I don't need to feel this way. Help me look at it differently.
Right.
And I think that's where we've gotten wrong is we make so many assumptions. And this is what's really helped me, Marguerite, is whenever I've had a problem, I go to that person and be like, hey, here's how I'm feeling. I don't need to feel this way. Do I have the wrong perspective? Right. Let me look at it differently. And the faster and better you can get at hard conversations and real conversations, what you'll do is you'll get the wrong people away from you. And so we go back to the 50. For example, there's people on here that stopped listening because I said I can tell you right now, that's a filter to make sure those people don't get close to me, because if you're that freaking sensitive or you're that wound up and knowing that I'm doing this for free and all I want to do is help people and you're going to judge me because I swear a little bit, know this, I have no agenda in life except for this, to help you. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. It's in my book, my book that I wrote, The 100 Things.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I owe you an apology. I kid you not. Oh,
you actually have it there.
I do.
There you go.
It has dust on it. Marguerite,
it's okay.
I don't know. Here's where I want to apologize. My intent was there, and I listen to audibles, and I straight up have narcolepsy when I start to read.
But guess what, Hank? It's a picture book, and you can actually write in it. So there you go. I bring that up to call you out. I brought it up.
No, but I called myself out because here's why. You're important to me. And so I taking responsibility because this is an outcome that I don't desire. And so here's an example of just calling it out before somebody else has to call it out. Does that make sense?
Thank you. So why I was talking about it though is because there is a section in the book and it talks about expectations and how many times those expectations are like a blind date almost. Like if I set an expectation for you and I don't tell you what that expectation is, how can you ever meet it? right? And so, and when you were talking about perspective, I'll tell quickly the concept of the story. Joe and I were going through a difficult time. All relationships do. We've been together 37 years. I woke up one day and I said, today's the day. You're either going to an attorney or a counselor. You decide. How would you like to get that conversation? Wake up call, Hank. Right?
I love it.
Well, luckily,
Here's why,
my
because it's no
husband,
longer neutral.
it's not neutral. And my husband is a smart man. We went to therapy. At the therapy session, we were the first one here. They're like, why are you here? And he goes, because she made me. I said, wrong answer, jerk. Right. And we go to the second session. We talk about our family background. He comes from an old world Spanish family, first generation American. I come from a mom who was married 4 times. So I had no good royal male role models in my life. The third one, we go separately. And the therapist is like, so are you done or is there still a chance? I said, he's here, so I'm willing to look. He says, I'd like you to go home and make a list of the things that you love about him. I'm like, I don't even like him right now. I don't think I can come up with one. So he said, go home and try to make the list. So I went home for a few days. I couldn't think of anything. I mean, I was to that place where I was like, I didn't even like the way he smelled, right? Like, don't come near me. And finally I wake up one day and there's tea next to my bed. My husband makes me tea or smoothies every day. I'm like, okay, I love that. And he's a good dad and he's funny and everybody loves Joe. And so I started to make this list. I only made it to 45. I didn't make it to 100. And that list changed our relationship. And here, I'll tell you why. He didn't change or do a thing. The only thing that changed was my perspective. And so now I won't say that he didn't ever change. He's changed a lot throughout and he's an amazing man. I'm so incredibly blessed to be married to him. But I think that applies to so much in life. Even if we go back to the beginning of this call today, what's going on in the market is really all about your perspective and how you look at it and what you choose to do with it or don't do with it, right?
100%. And it's interesting. I quit drinking about 9 months ago.
Yeah, I'm super proud of you for that.
Multiple reasons for that. One of them was I want a better relationship with my wife. And so maybe the reason why I hadn't read this yet was the timing's right now, because I recently told her a couple of weeks ago, I go, hey, one of the reasons, and there was many reasons, and one of them was all the sexual assault. And again, I'm not sure if I bring this up here yet. Okay. We had some things happen in our company. And the reality was, as a leader, I was pissed off. I was angry. And I said, what is it that I can do that might actually help? Yeah. Well, in our real estate industry, a lot of events that you go to, it's all revolved around drinking. And me being a leader within the company, I said, you know what, that's something I can do, is provide leadership that doesn't drink so that maybe people don't drink and then get in situations or have their guard down or whatever the case may be. Yet at the end of the day, that was something that I could do. Now, let's look at this. Here's another thing. That's a real topic that needs to be talked about. And I could 100%. Even feel myself going, hey, should I bring this up on this podcast? I think that we should, because here's the reality is there's no family, there's no company that doesn't have challenges that go on. And if you run from it, I think the biggest problem we have in society right now is to think that we're not supposed to have problems.
We should probably do a whole nother podcast about this because this is an important topic and there's a lot to digest in it. And as a woman is going to be 60 this year and has been in real estate for almost 30 years, I actually was near when that event happened. And I've seen countless situations where these things have happened and they're poo-pooed and brushed off. And they are not talked about because of the person might have been an influencer, or the person might have been, that was accused, or the person might have done this, or, and I had a lengthy conversation one time with one of the top people. And I said, you have several daughters. And what you need to understand from your daughter's perspective is that while you think your daughter has an equal seat at the table, she doesn't. Because the problem is the table is full of men, right? And that needs to change. They're like, she has just as much opportunity as me. And I go, that's not in the real world. And there needs to be more men that are saying, hey, you need to come and sit at the table. Hey, I need your perspective. Hey, I need to hear what you have to say. I need to know what's really happening and not act like it's not happening in this like false world. So, I mean, I have a lot to say on this subject, but we won't dig
Well,
into
and
it.
also take a stand. One of the gentlemen that was named in the lawsuit, I was putting on an event and he wanted to come. I said, I've only heard the victim's perspective, and until we have a conversation, you're not welcome. And if you come, you're going to have the conversation in front of everyone. I took a stand. And at the end of the day, I think everybody should be able to have their perspective and their view. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they didn't want to have a conversation, so I forbidden them from coming. See, I think sometimes what we have to do is we have to have standards and principles, and we have to be also willing to look at things differently. Yet, how comfortable do you think it was for me to tell someone, again, you can't come because of this?
Right. And I admire you. I didn't know that happened. So I'm extremely grateful that you made that decision. And I just think that what needs to happen is there needs to be more situations where women aren't fighting to get at the table. They're invited to be at the table. And it needs to be a conversation where it's got to be equal in that way. Because otherwise it does get poo-pooed and it gets, oh, that couldn't possibly happen. They just shouldn't have drank so much, or they shouldn't have wore their skirt too short, or who knows. I mean, again, whole long conversation, but
probably above our, here's where I want to be okay too. It's probably above our pay grade, and we've got to be okay with having these conversations and looking at it differently and looking at, okay, Marguerite, tell me more about that, because as a white male, it's probably tough for me to understand where you're coming from.
Right. Right. Agreed. And I think that there definitely needs to be more conversation about it. I do know that regarding this particular situation, there's been a group of us that are mostly women that have gotten together to try to talk to, including some of the leadership, about what can be done to make sure things like this don't happen in the future, or that people know what the options are. But at the end of the day, I do believe that we have a responsibility, right? For those who are given much, much is expected. We have a responsibility as influential people and as people who are speaking out to speak out more about these tough subjects, which are not the easy ones to have. And I'm so grateful for your friendship and for you being here and for you bringing up the tough subjects, because a lot of times, again, they get pushed to the wayside because that's not politically correct. And as a world, in order to improve the situation, we have to talk about it. Yeah. And we have to have the conversations that are going to dynamically change what's happening. And sometimes you have to scream loud because people aren't listening. You have to be really loud and you have to be really upfront, and you have to risk certain things as well that are not the easy things to risk. But again, this could be like a whole nother.
Well, and let's look at this from a real estate standpoint, because we go back to, you can't stand on every single topic. Yet when you're passionate about things and you're consistently passionate about things, what happens is people will be drawn to you, and people are drawn to you. Most likely, we know that everybody's going to have some sort of real estate need almost every 7 years, and then they know 100 people. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to be human. And when you're human, guess what? We need skill set, time on task, enough experimentation to get victory so that you get confidence. And then you add in, you've been doing this for 30 years, Marguerite. You could probably trip over 36 deals at this point.
Yes, I can. Fair.
But it hasn't always been that way. What happens is time on task can be talent every single time. So I want everybody to ask themselves right now, are you doing enough to even give yourself an opportunity to win? And are you doing enough of the right activities? And then people always say, how? YouTube has everything you need knowledge-wise. You have to be it before you can do it, before you can have it, which means you need to believe that in 2023, you can have the best year ever. I'm freaking stoked. You know why, Marguerite? I took some time off when everything was easy. I wasn't as happy. And now that things are challenging, I'm a skilled sailor for rough seas. And let's go.
Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. Thank you so much, Hank. I think we'll wrap it up with that. And always great talking to you. And it's such a pleasure to have you on the show today. And I'm going to call your wife and tell her you have to read that book to her personally.
You know what? It's here. I'm dusting it off. And you know what? I'm very grateful for you, friend.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on Real Estate Real World. Be sure to follow us on all of the podcast programs out there. We're on all of them. And thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your time, Hank. Have an awesome day.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on Real Estate Real World, where we talk with masters and leaders in real estate and beyond on how we can raise the bar in our industry. Please subscribe over on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to give us a review. Your reviews encourage us and help others find our podcast. For show notes and hot topics on what's going on right now in our real estate industry, hop on over to www.realestaterealworld.com and add your name to our email. Thanks again for listening. And go out there, be a part of the elite masterclass in raising the bar on the real estate industry.